Oh, hello there. I'm Dominique, your cybersecurity homegirl, and welcome to my digital corner of the internet. On this channel, you can expect to learn, grow, and connect with me on all things technology and personal growth wise. And I'm on a mission to close the cybersecurity skills gap by teaching 1 million people one video at a time. Now, you might not be familiar with the cybersecurity skills gap. It's a stat that honestly has been tutored in our industry for quite some time. It is the statistics that essentially says that there are 1 million open cybersecurity roles and that we need more people to fill them to help protect our systems, our data, essentially the world. And what I don't see very often is organizations or solutions to help with that. And so that's what I'm here for. Today, we are starting with a topic I am very excited to talk about, which is AI security. I enjoy working in technology because of the many benefits it can provide to our society. I am also very aware of its harms. And my goal with this channel, and honestly, everything that I'm trying to do, is to make sure that the people who are most harmed and most left behind during these technological advances like AI and people who look like me have the knowledge that they need to be able to sit at the table or at least make their own. So, today we're going to talk about what AI security actually is, why it's not the same as the cybersecurity you probably already know, and where it is probably already showing up in your work, whether anyone has called it that or not. By the end of this video, you will have the language to explain what AI security is and the clarity to understand how it affects your day to day. Let's jump into it. AI security is the discipline of protecting artificial intelligence systems from threats that compromise their integrity, confidentiality, or reliability. So in cybersecurity, we have something called the CIA triad, which stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It is like the holy grail of cybersecurity. Whenever you take a test, whenever someone's asking you an interview question, when you're just starting out in the field, you will more than likely be asked about the CIA triad or how you take those concepts to apply it to protecting systems. And so, in regards to AI specifically in practice, this looks like identifying, understanding, and managing the risks that come specifically from building, buying, and using AI systems. Now, risk is a topic that is going to come up very often as I'm talking about cybersecurity, as I'm talking about technology, and as I'm talking about AI, because risk is the, I'm going to say holy grail again, right? It's how are we making sure that the decisions we're making, the systems we're introducing, the innovations that we're trying to move forward with isn't harming, right, organizations or people. So let's break down some of these phases so you can understand how AI is being used today and how you might be using it yourself. First, let's talk about building. And so, if your organization that you currently work at, your 9 to 5, or your startup, or whatever it is that you do on your day to day, is developing AI, and so this could be you are training a language model on your internal data. This could be fine tuning, right? An existing model. You could be using Claude or you could be using any other models that are out there, or building an application that uses AI under the hood, then you are a builder. Right. And so the risk, again, that word is going to come up pretty often. The risk in building AI lives in the development process. And questions that need answers will include, what data are you training on? Does it contain sensitive data? And so think of sensitive data as your personal information, your address, social security numbers, anything that can tie back to a person. as well as bank account numbers, things like that, healthcare information. Those are all sensitive information. And it's important to understand if your model or anything that you're building AI wise has that or contains that information. Another question is it biased in ways that will show up in the output, right? And so when we think about bias, and bias can happen in a variety of ways, it can be biased towards a certain group of people. It can be biased towards a certain language, right? Like bias lives in our society in such minute ways. And we have to be careful about whether or not that bias is showing up in the outputs that when someone is using, for example, ChatGPT, that they're not going to get an answer that has that bias embedded. And a last question to ask yourself if you are in the building phase is who has access to the model during development and after deployment? Now, these are questions that should be answered before the first line of code ships, but as we know in the real world, it doesn't. Your second phase of this is going to be buying. And most organizations these days are not building AI from scratch. It is time, resource, money intensive. And so most organizations are buying either as a standalone product or embedded in the tools that they're already paying for. And so think of some of your favorite tools that you're using today, things that are popping to my mind: Salesforce, Perplexity. Honestly, any product that is around has now rebranded themselves as an AI product. And so when you see that, that means they have built some sort of AI feature in their product and you're using it. And so think of your HR platform, right? We are in one of the most complicated job markets that at least I have ever seen in my little 3 decades. And you can expect that HR has AI embedded in their platform. Your project management software. Think of your customer service platforms, your email, right? A lot of people use Gmail that has Gemini that's summarizing what happened in your last stand up. That is AI. And so AI is already inside a lot of the products you use every day. And most organizations haven't even updated their processes to keep up with it. And one that comes to mind, especially for my cybersecurity folks, are going to be vendor risk management, right? And so buying AI means you inherit the security decisions, the security thoughts, the processes that that vendor made, and you should understand what those decisions were. Now, lastly, we're going to go into the using phase. So this is the layer that touches pretty much every person in an organization. So think of the people who are using ChatGPT for questions, or using Copilot inside Microsoft for summaries, or perhaps you're just running prompts through whatever tools you found. Using AI creates risk around data exposure, around the accuracy, right, of the outputs that are coming back to you as a user and are being treated as fact, and around accountability for when things go wrong, because it's hard to place blame on a robot, right, who can't answer, or we can't hold accountable for when they do harm to someone. And so the using layer, right, where you have tons of people who just want to make sure that they can do their job correctly, but that is where shadow AI lives. And that is the layer that most compliance programs, if you are on a GRC team, this is for you. Right? That is where you have the least visibility right now, and where your auditors are going to be digging into. Okay, so definition time, because I know many of you may not be familiar with cybersecurity terms such as shadow IT. And I had just mentioned shadow AI, and I love opening the dictionary whenever I see something and I'm reading and I don't know what the word is. So I want to make sure that you're caught up. So, shadow AI is a phrase to describe any AI tool that is being used inside your organization that has not, keyword, not gone through any official review or approval process. And so, a great example of this could be an AI writing assistant that your marketing team downloaded without telling IT, Most of the time, it is people just trying to do their jobs better because the work for everyone has gotten significantly faster, right? AI has 10x, if not 100x, right? The amount of work that people have to do and how fast they are expected to deliver results. But from a governance standpoint, because remember, we're talking about GRC, we're talking about cybersecurity. If your organization does not know that AI tool exists in their environment, that means you cannot assess it, you cannot control it, and you cannot be accountable for what it does with your data. So when I say AI security, I'm talking about all three of those: building, using, and buying at once. It is a full life cycle of how AI enters and operates inside your organization and the risks that come with each stage of that journey. Moving forward, I have a theory that risk management and governance are going to be the dominant focus of AI security work. And my theory is backed up by a lot of the research that I've been doing for the past couple of months, which I'm more than happy to link in the description and share a lot of my thought process in the newsletter that I publish on a weekly basis. And the reason why I say that is not because the technical threats are not real, right? Like we understand the threats that AI poses to the world. I actually just finished watching, don't come for me. I actually just finished watching Terminator for the first time and Skynet. We on the way. Right? They're very real. We will get into them and not to fearmonger. But organizations that get ahead of governance, right, of setting a foundation, of asking the hard questions about accountability or what happens, or just doing scenarios where you're thinking through, okay, we're bringing this very new, very exciting, but very scary technology into our environment. Like, what are the scenarios that we should look out for in case something happens, right? Or what are let's start brainstorming some of the answers of how we can solve them. And so the organizations that get ahead of this are the ones who are going to build a solid AI governance foundation first. And this will mean that they are the first people at an organization who can accurately answer: who owns this? How do we assess it? And what do we do when something goes wrong? These are governance questions, and they're the ones that most programs are not ready to answer, in which your auditor is going to ask you about. And I want to be clear about something because I think it causes a lot of confusion. And so, to follow this journey with me, I'm going to introduce the concept of traditional security and AI security. Traditional security is like building a really strong fence around your house. You know where the boundary is, you know who should be in and out of that gate. And for example, if a rabbit happens to get through, you see that there's a hole in your fence, it's very clear, right, about how your security was breached. AI security is like realizing your house can make decisions, right? You built that pretty strong fence to protect the house, but now the house is part of the equation, right? Think of a smart house where that house is making decisions on its own while nobody is watching. And so it's not that I just need a fence. I need to also understand, like, all right, well, maybe I'm running to the grocery store and now my house is able to prep my refrigerator, or it maybe cleaned up the spill that I made and I didn't even know because I just kind of ran out. Like, it's very confusing. And so, what I want to make sure I get across is that AI security is not a replacement for traditional cybersecurity. It is an extension of it. It is a similar extension, if you have been in technology for some time, that we saw when cloud, right, became mainstream, or cloud computing, to be a little bit more specific, became mainstream. But that extension matters, right? Because traditional security is built on a set of assumptions. We love to assume in cybersecurity. We assume that if a system is functioning the way it was configured, it's behaving correctly. We assume that risk comes from external attackers or internal bad actors. We assume the right controls are things like access management, encryption, firewalls, monitoring, you name it. We patch known vulnerabilities or weaknesses. We look for unauthorized access and we respond when we find it. And all of those assumptions that I've just named and more that are already out there are being significantly tested by AI models right now. Now, AI security has some distinct challenges. Some are new, some are old, some are revamped. And here are four that I researched that are catching organizations off guard the most. The first is that AI can fail without being attacked. Like, that's the whole point of cybersecurity is that when something attacks, we know that it's failing and we can go and protect it, right? Traditional security assumes that something went wrong because someone made it go wrong, meaning I can neatly point to a log or a set of circumstances to explain an issue. A breach means there was unauthorized access, like somebody tried to get in who wasn't supposed to. Malware means someone came and injected or pressed the wrong button or did something wrong, right? Like I can point to that neatly. AI breaks that assumption completely. An AI system can produce harmful, biased, or just flat out wrong outputs while functioning exactly as designed. And that means the system isn't broken. It is doing exactly what it learned to do. And what it learned may have been flawed from the beginning. There's no alert for that. There's no email to tag you on that. There's no patching that. And yet it is happening, and a lot of organizations are experiencing that today. The second is that the attack surface is now in your keyboard and it's not just your perimeter. And so in cybersecurity, we have this concept of the perimeter, meaning think of it like a moat around a castle. Traditional security is focused on keeping people from crossing the moat. I want to make sure you stay over on that side and I'm comfortable in my nice little moat. Now, AI security has to worry about what is already inside this castle walls and whether it's behaving the way it should, which points to who even built the castle in the first place. Now, cloud computing already started bashing on the head of the concept of a perimeter. When your data moves out of your building and into someone else's servers, the perimeter got pretty complicated. AI came through and smashed the perimeter because now the threat is not always someone trying to get in. Sometimes it's the system itself producing the wrong thing from the inside, which leads to the need for AI insider threat modeling. But I will get into that in another video. And there's also a video that I'm creating for LinkedIn that will be out this upcoming August. Attackers can manipulate AI models using specially crafted prompts. So, you know, those prompts that you be using to say, hey, chat, I need you to help me out with dinner tonight. These specially crafted prompts are designed to make the system behave in ways it should not. Now, this isn't new because script injection attacks is a thing, right? It's been around forever, but now it's just in a different form. And on the training side, meaning how large language models or LLMs are trained, there is data poisoning, which is when someone corrupts the data and AI learns from before it ever gets into production. So by the time you know something is wrong, that model has been wrong for a pretty long time. Okay, we covered the first two ways in which organizations are getting caught off guard. The first being AI can fail without being attacked. And the second being that your attack surface is now down to your personal keyboard. The third challenge is that governance and accountability break down when you try and scale AI. Now, remember, traditional security typically has a clear ownership model. Someone owns the system, someone owns providing the access, someone owns the audit trail. AI operates non-stop. It is designed to do that, right? It's designed to be faster. It can make decisions in real time, and it often does so without a human reviewing each action. So, what happens when AI makes a decision that affects a real person and no human was in the loop? Who's going to be responsible for that? And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people are looking around the room wondering who is going to take up accountability for that or who's going to step up with that. Most programs don't have a clean answer to that question. And so this channel was created as a way to help me and you start to answer these questions. because the people who look like me and the people who need help the most are the ones who are harmed. The last challenge that is rocking the socks off of organizations these days are that there is a speed mismatch happening. Now, AI security is emerging as a formal discipline right now, and the threats are not waiting for the frameworks to catch up. I actually just published an article earlier this week that kind of describes how a lot of the EU AI Act, the ISO 42001 framework that's out there, were built in mind way before Indentic came out, right? And so now, NIST and a lot of the other organizations that we rely on are still in the process of figuring it out. But in the meantime, organizations are already moving full steam ahead. And so there's this conundrum of what do we do, right? When AI is operating and is changing faster than the controls being built to govern it. And that is where the gap of most of the risk is living today and what we're going to talk about. Okay, let's pause. Take a deep breath with me because I just gave you a lot of information. And I do not want you to be overwhelmed. This is when I was first deep diving into it, it's a lot, right? And I won't be mad at you if you decide to go take a snack break right now, get some popcorn, get something to drink. I have some tea, but you have to promise to come back because we have more to learn. Okay, are you back? Okay, cool. Let's continue. We are almost done. Now, let's go over the ways AI is already showing up in your day to day, and you probably don't even know, or maybe don't know how to recognize. Let's use an example of when I had joined a company as their security leader, and one of the first things I had started to notice was that there was shadow IT and AI everywhere. It's pretty common, especially if you're a startup, right, and you don't have tons of resources or teams or systems set up. What I found was that people were installing tools and actively using them without ever going through the vendor management process. And I'm not talking about like one or two people. This was pretty widespread. And so at larger organizations, this is much easier to catch, right? You're going to have tools that prevent your employees from installing applications that are unapproved, or most large organizations monitor your browser activity, right? Or and flags anything that hasn't been reviewed. But for small businesses and startups, which is a target audience that I love to educate and to partner and collaborate with, that infrastructure often doesn't exist. And what I see pretty frequently in those environments is that you'll have teams like HR professionals or legal professionals who are technically responsible for compliance and security tasks that are genuinely outside of your wheelhouse, right? Like I signed up to be in HR and do recruiting. I didn't sign up to do a vendor management process and ask a vendor about their encryption. I don't know anything about that. You have these people who are doing their best with what they have, but security is not their core expertise, right? And that is where your gaps are going to show up. And so many of the challenges that I had to sit with as a security leader in that type of environment was how I had to ask myself, like, how do you balance protecting the business and its customers without blocking innovation, right? Because all companies want to move fast. And there's no perfect answer to that, right? There are trade offs that you have to navigate consciously, and there's context that you need to build. And so, what I did to start building that context for myself in those processes so that way I am not blocking innovation, because as security professionals, something I'm going to say very often in these videos, as security professionals, we cannot continue to rely on FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt, in order to get our point across to other teams. It's not helpful. It puts security professionals in a bad light or a negative light. And our aim here is to make sure that we're positively speaking to other people about security. And so what I did was start building processes around what already existed rather than trying to shut everything down overnight. And so, for example, the company didn't have a asset inventory. So I worked with IT to start building one for both software and hardware. In parallel, I was also having direct conversations with leadership, not to alarm them, but to make sure they understood the challenge and were part of figuring out how we addressed it. So, in the short term, I put together a process and a policy, and then I went and I educated users on it. I wanted people to understand the why behind them needing to bring our team into AI vendor conversations before you make a decision, before you sign a contract, before you implement it into your environment, and not after. It is not impossible to do after, but it is pretty difficult, right? And it just causes a lot of tension. I also created an AI do's and don'ts guideline that gave employees a clear reference point. So the answer to, can I use this tool, was not just ask security, but actually came with enough context that people can start to reason through things themselves. And that is what AI security looks like in practice at small organizations. It's not a perfectly resourced program with a dedicated team of 10. It is usually one security leader, perhaps another team member under me. I had one person under me, figuring out how to build the bare bones foundation while the house is already being lived in. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to see yourself in it. And so, whether you're at a startup or Fortune 500, whether you have a full security team or you are the security team, the work of governing AI starts with the same thing: knowing what's in your environment and building the conversation with leadership before someone else finds the gap with you, AKA a hacker or your auditor. And so here are 4 areas of AI security you can start to build for yourself. The first area is model security. This is about the AI system itself. How was it trained? What data is being used? Could that training process have introduced vulnerabilities or biases? And what does it mean for how the model behaves in production? It can also cover adversarial attacks, which are the inputs specifically designed to manipulate a model into doing something wrong. And so think of it as the internal integrity of the AI itself. The second area is data security and privacy. AI systems need data to train, to function, and often to personalize. This creates real exposure. And so, questions you should be asking is, what data are we putting into the model? What data is the model retaining from our interactions? What happens to that data if a vendor gets breached? And more importantly, if you're using a third party AI tool, what rights have you given that vendor over the data that your employees and your customers are feeding into it? As consumers, we're not reading those long term agreements, right? Terms of service carefully enough to answer those questions. I say we all should be, but the reality of it is it's not. And that's where a lot of these vendors are just putting some of the protections for themselves in it. All right, third on our AI security map is operational security. And this is where my security and compliance people live. It is the governance and risk management layer. And so the questions that you care about and that you should be asking yourself and including are: who has approved which AI system for use in your organization? Who owns the risk if an AI system makes a bad decision? Can you roll it back? What does your incident response process look like when an incident involves AI? And lastly, how do you monitor AI systems for performance drift or unexpected behavior over time? Now, these are compliance questions that auditors most certainly will start asking if they're not already. And unfortunately, most compliance programs have not built processes to provide the answer yet. And remember, I said that the organization bodies we rely on, such as NIST, are still trying to figure it out, which means you have 1 or 2, maybe audit cycles before this will catch up to you. The last AI security stop on this journey is supply chain. Every AI tool your organization uses has a lineage, right? That model came from somewhere. It was trained on the data you didn't review, and it may be running on infrastructure you have no visibility into. And if it is a third party SaaS product with AI built into it, the vendor controls the identity architecture, the access model, and the update cadence, right? And so your vendor risk management process should have a question specifically built around AI. It should be several questions, to be honest. And if not, we can build that together in a future video. If you don't know where to start in AI security, these four areas is a great first step because the discipline is still forming. You don't need to be an expert. There's not many experts out there right now, unless you've been following AI since 1998. But you do need to know that they exist because they are the map of everything we're going to build on this channel and probably in your organization. I want to close this video with something practical because I don't believe in teaching concepts without giving you something to do with them. So here's where I want you to start with just one question. Think about the AI tools your organization currently uses. And if you don't know, that's really your first step. Go figure that out. Ask your IT team, ask your security team, start asking questions about, hey, I would always do that, right? When I'm trying to learn something and perhaps I didn't neatly sit on that team, I would go to the other team to say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about this particular topic. I know that's in your wheelhouse. Can you let me know? Or are there any guidelines, references, knowledge bases that I can reference for myself so that way I can upskill on my own? Easy to do. Most people will point you in the right direction. And it doesn't matter if those AI tools are officially approved or not. Just think about the tools that your team uses, right? Think about every day when you are doing your work, what AI tools, where is AI embedded in the tools you're using today or in the platforms that you're already paying for? Perhaps the ones you're not paying for. Are there any tools that your colleagues are using that you may or may not know has AI embedded? Or if it went through the review process, right, with your IT team. All of those are questions you can start to answer today or ask yourself today. And for each one of them, as a follow up, you can ask who owns the security of this? And I'm not talking about the subscription. And sometimes that might be the same person, right? Because especially if you're at a small company, not there's not much delineation between the person who purchased the subscription and is responsible for the security of it. Um, but if you can figure out who owns the security of this, especially if that person isn't on the security team. And second, who is responsible for understanding the risk it carries or is monitoring how it behaves and who knows what to do if something goes wrong, right? Like, do you have that established with that vendor if this is a third party vendor? And as I mentioned, most organizations right now don't have answers to those questions. And it's not because people don't care, but because no one has been asked to own it yet. Or perhaps things are moving so fast that nobody has taken the time to even know that that's a question you should be asking. That's where you come in. You can be the person who asks the hard questions because that is how it starts. That's how we build solutions. Is to say, okay, I'm going to take responsibility to figure this out. And I'm not saying I'm going to find the answer, but I will at least take the first step and other people will join you along that journey. Over the next year, I'm going to walk you through the threats, the frameworks, the gaps, and the practical steps and language that actually lands in a meeting room and changes what happens for you, hopefully in a positive way. I'm excited to do this with you together. I'm glad you're here. If this resonates with you, don't be shy. Leave me a comment. I like to chit chat. I'm a chatty patty, and I will see you in the next video.